Have you ever met someone who made you want to be a better person? Well, I did, and I met her when I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. Let me take you back to the very beginning. The moment I decided to walk away from everything people think they want: the luxury, the fame, the money, and become just a regular man. I'm Ethan Blake, 32 years old, CEO of Blake Tech Enterprises, a billion-dollar tech empire that I built from the ground up. Sounds impressive, right? It was. On paper, I had everything: wealth, women, status, even my face on the cover of Forbes. But none of it mattered. Not anymore. Because no matter how many women threw themselves at me, how many fake smiles I saw at charity galas, I couldn't shake the feeling that no one really knew me. No one cared about who I was without the bank account. They loved the brand, not the man. So I made a decision, a crazy one. I would disappear, well, sort of. Step down temporarily, create a fake identity, live in the real world, and see if anyone, could fall in love with me without knowing I had a private jet waiting on standby. That's how Ethan Ray was born. An ordinary guy with a beat-up backpack, a hole in his sneaker, and a made-up resume. I rented a tiny studio apartment in the heart of the city. One bedroom, peeling wallpaper, noisy pipes. My neighbors blasted music until 3 a.m., and the elevator always smelled like old Chinese food. But for the first time in years, I felt real. My assistant Jordan thought I was losing my mind. "Are you sure about this?" he asked while helping me pack. "This isn't some undercover CEO Netflix thing. You're talking cold showers and cup noodles, man." I grinned. "Exactly." He shook his head. "If the board finds out, they'll eat you alive." "They won't. You're the only one who knows, and I trust you." He sighed, but he supported me. Loyalty like that is rare. I promised to check in weekly, and he promised to cover my tracks. I started my new life the very next Monday. First stop, finding a job that didn't require a background check. After 2 humiliating days of rejections and confused stares at my fake resume, I landed a gig washing dishes at a tiny local cafe called Hazel's Brew. Family-owned, worn down, but cozy in a nostalgic way. The pay was minimum wage. The hours sucked. But the food smelled amazing, and I didn't have to sit behind a desk all day. It was humbling. Exactly what I needed. And that's when I met her, Lily Carter. She worked the morning shift, pouring coffee, cleaning tables, smiling like the world hadn't beaten her down, though I could tell it had tried. She wore her hair in a messy ponytail, always had a pencil tucked behind her ear, and her laugh, it was music, the kind that sticks with you. The first time we spoke, she handed me a towel and said, "You missed a spot. And another one. And that one. Are you sure you've washed dishes before?" I blinked. "Totally, just not in this decade." She smirked. "Well, welcome to Hazel's. You're going to need gloves, and maybe a tetanus shot." I laughed, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. Lily wasn't like the women I was used to. She didn't flirt. She didn't care about appearances. She talked to me like I was just me. Over the next few days, I found myself looking forward to our early shifts. She'd bring me leftover muffins, tell me stories about her dog, or vent about how her second job at the bookstore was draining her soul. "Why do you work so much?" I asked one morning, watching her rub her tired eyes. She shrugged. "Bills, dreams, my mom's medical stuff. I don't really have a choice." I nodded. "Still, you're always so upbeat." She gave a small smile. "Life's already hard. Why make it worse with a bad attitude?" God, she was incredible. One rainy afternoon, I saw her struggling with 3 bags of groceries and a broken umbrella. Without thinking, I ran over, offered to help, and walked her home. Her apartment was even smaller than mine, but it was spotless, filled with plants and smelled like cinnamon. She made us tea, and we sat by the window watching the rain. "I hope this doesn't sound weird," I said, "but I like talking to you." She raised an eyebrow. "It doesn't sound weird. It sounds nice. I haven't had real conversations in a while." "Yeah?" she asked softly. "What happened? Girlfriend break your heart or something?" I hesitated. How much should I say? "Something like that," I said. "I guess I just got tired of pretending." She looked at me for a long second, then she nodded. "Me too." And just like that, something shifted. Over the next couple of weeks, we grew closer. We shared our lunches, swapped music playlists, joked about the weird customers who came in demanding oat milk with a side of attitude. But I still hadn't told her the truth. She thought I was Ethan Ray, a guy who barely scraped by, who borrowed Wi-Fi from the cafe, who had no savings or social status. And she still liked me. That both thrilled and terrified me, because I was falling hard, and I didn't know how long I could keep up the lie. There's something about spending time with someone who sees the real you, even if they only know part of your story. Lily saw me, even though I was hiding behind a made-up identity. We spent more time together after work, grabbing late-night snacks, sitting on park benches, laughing over the dumbest things. She'd bring her sketchbook sometimes and doodle while I rambled about the weird dreams I'd had the night before. One night, we shared fries and watched street performers play violin in the cold. "Do you ever feel like you're meant for something bigger?" I asked. She didn't even pause. Every day, she said, but then I remember the rent's due. I laughed, but she wasn't joking. You ever chase something? I asked. Even when you're scared it'll break you? She didn't respond right away. Then she said softly, I wanted to go to art school, New York. I even got in. But then my mom got sick, and my dad bailed, so I stayed, got 2 jobs. Life had other plans, I guess. Her voice cracked just a little at the end, and I hated myself for having the money that could have changed her life. If only I wasn't pretending to be broke. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my shoebox apartment, thinking about how she gave up everything for someone she loved. No bitterness, no self-pity. She was pure gold in a world full of silver paint. The next week, I started doing small things to help her out without being obvious, like leaving her favorite granola bars in her locker with no note, offering to cover her shift so she could rest, quietly fixing the leaky pipe under her sink after she mentioned it in passing. She always thanked me with that warm, curious smile, like she didn't quite get why I was so kind. But the truth? She made me want to be a better man, not the CEO, not the millionaire, just Ethan. One Thursday, she surprised me. You've been helping me a lot, she said over coffee. I was thinking maybe I could return the favor. I frowned. You don't owe me anything. I know, but I want to. Then she handed me a flyer. It was for a community art fair. I'm running a booth for the kids' art program I volunteer with, she explained. They could use an extra pair of hands. Plus, I think it'd be fun. I blinked. You want me to work a booth with you? Unless you're afraid of glue sticks and glitter. I grinned. Bring it on. That Saturday, we spent the entire afternoon surrounded by construction paper, popsicle sticks, and screaming toddlers. Lily was in her element, cheering on every finger paint mess like it was a masterpiece. I mostly tried not to get paint on my jeans. Halfway through the event, an elderly woman leaned over and asked, Are you two married? Lily turned bright red. Oh, no, we're just friends. I chuckled but said nothing. The truth was I wanted more, so much more. Later, as we cleaned up, I asked, So, do people ask you that often? She rolled her eyes. Sometimes. I think old people just assume anyone under 40 is in love. I cleared my throat. And are you? She looked at me carefully. In love? I nodded slowly. She smiled softly. Not yet. That night, I walked her home. We stood outside her apartment door for a while, neither of us wanting to end the night. She hesitated before asking, Can I tell you something? Anything. She looked down, chewing her lip. I've had a rough history with guys, especially rich ones. My stomach dropped. She continued, There was this guy a few years ago. Flashy car, expensive dates. He acted like a prince, until I found out he was cheating on me with 3 different women. When I confronted him, he laughed. Said I should be grateful he even took me out. Told me people like me weren't on his level. My blood boiled. I'm sorry, I said, voice low. It messed me up for a while. I stopped trusting people, especially anyone who flaunted money. She gave me a sideways glance. But you're different, you're real. The guilt hit me like a truck, because I wasn't being real, not completely. And the longer I waited to tell her the truth, the worse it would hurt. The next day I decided to tell her everything. I planned it all out. I'd take her for a walk, sit her down, and finally come clean. But life had other plans. As I stepped out of my building that morning, I saw her. She was sitting on the curb, crying into her hands. I rushed over. Lily, what's wrong? She looked up, face blotchy and tear-streaked. It's my mom. She's back in the hospital. They don't know if it's her heart or her lungs, and I can't afford the tests they need to run. She broke down and I held her close, my shirt soaking up her tears. I wanted so badly to fix everything. I could have written a check that moment and taken care of it all. But what would she think if I did? Would she be grateful? Or feel betrayed? Instead, I said the only thing I could. I'll be here, whatever you need. And that week I picked up extra shifts, brought her dinner, drove her to the hospital using a borrowed car, sat with her in silence when words felt useless. She clung to me like I was her anchor. And all I could think about was how I'd built a castle of lies, and soon it was going to come crashing down. A few days later, after her mom was stabilized, we sat on a park bench in the early morning. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I don't know what I'd do without you, she whispered. And I almost told her right then. My throat tightened, but the words stuck. Because how do you confess a lie that could break everything? How do you look someone in the eyes and say, I'm not who you think I am? But I had to, soon, before someone else did it for me. Because the closer we got, the more I had to lose. Some people say love hits you like a lightning bolt. For me it was slower, softer. It crept in like sunrise, warming my chest until I couldn't remember what life felt like before her. Lily had become the center of my world. She'd smile, and the worst parts of my day would disappear. She'd hum while brewing coffee, and suddenly everything felt peaceful. She'd glance my way during a busy shift, and my heart would trip over itself. I was falling. No, I had already fallen. And every second I spent with her made the truth harder to carry. One evening after work, we took a walk through the city park. The sky was painted in orange and gold, and the scent of warm grass and food trucks drifted on the breeze. Lily was unusually quiet. "You okay?" I asked, gently bumping her shoulder. She nodded slowly. "Just tired and thinking." "About?" She hesitated. "You." I stopped walking. "Me?" She turned toward me, eyes wide and honest. "I've never met anyone like you. You're patient, kind. You make me feel safe." Her words hit me like a wave, beautiful and painful. "I care about you a lot," she said softly. "More than I thought I would." I took her hand without thinking. Her fingers curled into mine, and I knew this moment was real. No lies, no games, just us. We stood like that for a minute, listening to the distant sound of children laughing and birds settling in for the night. And then she leaned up and kissed me. It wasn't long, it wasn't dramatic, but it was perfect. When we pulled apart, she smiled nervously. "Sorry, I shook my head. "Don't apologize." Because that kiss lit up something inside me I hadn't felt in years. Not attraction, not lust. Hope. After that, we were inseparable. We didn't call it dating right away, but we acted like a couple. We spent every break together, walked each other home, shared inside jokes, talked late into the night. She brought me a thermos of hot cocoa one rainy morning and said, "For the man who thinks the sun rises when I smile." I'd said that to her a week before, and she'd laughed so hard she cried. Now she was quoting me back with a smirk. I was so gone for her, it wasn't even funny. Then came the night I realized just how much she trusted me. She invited me to dinner at her apartment, just the two of us. I brought flowers. She blushed so hard I thought she'd burst into flames. She made pasta, slightly overcooked, but I pretended not to notice, and set the table with mismatched plates and tea candles. We ate, talked, listened to her favorite playlist. After dinner, she put on an old record and pulled me into a slow dance right there in her tiny living room. You're a terrible dancer," she teased. "Only because you're too good," I said. She laughed and rested her head on my chest. "I feel safe with you," she whispered, "like I could trust you with anything." And right then the guilt almost shattered me. I should have told her, but I didn't want the night to end. I didn't want her to look at me and see someone else. A stranger. A liar. So instead I held her tighter and said nothing. Later that week something happened that shook both of us. Lily's ex showed up. I was mopping the cafe floor when I saw her frozen by the door, face pale. A tall man in a tailored suit strolled in like he owned the place. "Lily," he said smoothly. "Been a while." She swallowed hard. "Nathan, what do you want?" "Just saying hi. You look good." He glanced at me, eyes sharp. "And this must be your new project?" I stepped forward. "I'm Ethan, and she doesn't want to talk to you." He smirked. "Relax, dishwasher. Just catching up with an old friend." Lily grabbed my arm. "Let's go." As we walked away, I could feel her trembling. Back outside, she let out a shaky breath. "He's the one I told you about, the rich jerk who used me." I clenched my jaw. "Want me to go back in there and show him what happens when people disrespect you?" She smiled weakly. "Nah, he's not worth the time." But I saw something in her eyes that night. A fear. A wound that hadn't quite healed. And I realized even more than before how high the stakes were. If she found out I was rich, and I'd lied about it, would I become just another Nathan in her story? That night I walked her home and sat on her couch while she vented. "I just hate that I still get shaky when I see him. Like he still has power over me." I took her hand. "He doesn't." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "You'd never hurt me, right?" My throat dried. "No," I whispered, "never," because I was already in love with her. And the truth? It was burning a hole in my chest. The next few days were harder. I couldn't look her in the eyes without feeling like a fraud. She noticed. Of course she did. One morning she stopped me behind the cafe and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" I blinked. "What? No, God, no." "Then what's going on? You've been distant, quiet, like you're hiding something." I opened my mouth. The words were there. "Tell her now. Just do it." But then Jordan called. My assistant. My link to my real life. I let it ring. I wasn't ready. "I'm just tired," I lied. "Long hours." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. For now. Then came the turning point. The cafe announced budget cuts, layoffs. They were letting people go. Lily was one of them. I watched her smile and thanked the manager like she wasn't just crushed. But later that night, she cried in my arms. "I don't know how I'm going to make rent," she said. "I can't lose this apartment." I offered to lend her money. She shook her head instantly. "No, I don't want your charity." "It's not charity," I said. "I care about you. Let me help." She pulled away. "You don't get it, Ethan. I've spent my whole life being less than the people around me. I don't want to owe anyone anything. Especially not someone I..." She trailed off, voice breaking. "Someone you what?" I asked gently. She looked at me. "Someone I think I'm falling in love with." I reached for her, heart racing. "Then let me in. Let me be there for you. She nodded and fell into my arms. But I knew I couldn't hold off much longer, because soon the truth would come out, whether I was ready or not. Then came the turning point. Secrets have a way of rotting from the inside out, and by now mine was poisoning everything. I barely slept. I kept my phone on silent so Lily wouldn't see the calls from Jordan. I made up stories about where I was going and what I was doing, just to keep the illusion alive. But the closer we got, the harder it became to justify it, because it wasn't just about hiding who I was anymore. It was about the person she saw when she looked at me, and how much it would hurt her to realize he wasn't real. Then one morning, everything fell apart. I was standing outside the cafe after grabbing coffee, our usual place, when I saw her. Lily was across the street, frozen in place, and she was staring at me, not at me exactly, but at the giant billboard behind me, one that had just gone up that morning. My face smiling in a sleek suit with bold letters that read, Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Industries, changing the world one bold move at a time. Her expression shattered. She walked slowly toward me, disbelief flooding her features. I stepped forward. Lily, is this a joke? She asked, voice low. No, I was going to tell you, I swear. You're a CEO? Her voice rose. The Ethan Cole everyone's talking about in the news lately? That Ethan Cole? I swallowed. Yes. She looked like she'd been punched. So everything you said, your job, your apartment, your life, was a lie? No, not everything. I really do live in that apartment. I really did work at the cafe. You needed to lie to me? Her voice cracked. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want you to fall for the CEO. I wanted you to fall for me. She stared at me like I was a stranger. But I didn't know you. I knew a version of you, a fiction. I'm still me, I said softly. She stepped back. No, you're not. You're just another rich guy who thought I wasn't good enough to know the truth. Lily, please. Tears filled her eyes. I trusted you. I loved you. Then she turned and walked away. And I let her go. Because I couldn't follow her. Not when I was the reason she was breaking. The days after that were a blur. I went back to my old life. My real life. Sleek offices, boardrooms, interviews, flashing lights, and endless meetings. And I hated every second of it. Nothing tasted right. Nothing felt good. I couldn't stop checking my phone, hoping she'd call, praying she'd forgive me. But she didn't. Jordan finally cornered me after a shareholder meeting. Okay, what's going on? He asked. You're distracted. You're missing calls. You're miserable. I just stared out the window. I met someone, I said finally. And I blew it because I was too much of a coward, to be honest. He raised a brow. You mean the barista? I nodded slowly. Dude, just tell her the truth. Not about your job. About why you lied. She won't care. She'll just remember I hurt her. Maybe, but she deserves to hear it anyway. So I went back to the cafe. She wasn't there. I waited outside her apartment. Left flowers. A note. She never responded. Then I heard from one of the other cafe workers that she'd taken a trip, gone to stay with a cousin upstate to get away from everything. I thought about sending a driver or showing up with a speech. But in the end, I decided not to chase her. Not yet. Because what she needed was time. And what I needed was to fix the parts of myself that still thought lying was easier than being vulnerable. I spent the next few weeks pouring myself into something better. A foundation for artists and underprivileged youth, inspired by her. We called it the Lily Foundation. She didn't know that, of course. Not yet. But someday I hoped she would, because this wasn't about winning her back anymore. It was about becoming the man worthy of her love. Then one day I got a message. From her. Just one line. We need to talk. My heart stopped. I dropped everything. When I saw her again, she looked different. Still beautiful, but harder, stronger. She'd changed, and maybe I had too. We sat on a park bench. The same one we'd once kissed beside. She didn't speak right away. Then finally she said, I've had time to think. I nodded, staying quiet. I hated you, she said. Not because you were rich, but because you didn't trust me with the truth. I know, I whispered. I kept asking myself, why? Why lie? Why build this fake life? I looked at her. Because I'd been burned too. Because every woman I met only saw my money, my title. No one ever asked what made me laugh or what I was afraid of, but you did. Her eyes softened just a little. I wasn't trying to trick you, I was trying to find you. The kind of person who'd love me without the perks, the suits, the cars, and I found her. I just didn't tell her in time. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, Do you still love me? I took a breath. I never stopped. She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. I'm not saying it's okay, or that I trust you fully again, but I believe you love me even when you lied, and maybe, just maybe, we can start again. My heart so... Start how? She smiled just a little. Tell me something real, something true, no filter. I leaned in. I think the sun rises when you smile. She laughed. You already used that line. It's still true. And in that moment, on that same park bench where our story almost ended, we found our way back. Not as a CEO and a barista, but just as two people who had made mistakes and still chose love. Love isn't about never messing up. It's about what you do after the mistakes. And I was determined to do better, to be better for her. After that conversation in the park, Lily didn't jump back into my arms. She didn't move into my penthouse or agree to romantic getaways in Paris. No, she asked me to start over. Earn me, she said simply. And I took that to heart. We started from scratch. No pretending, no filters, just real moments. Coffee dates where I didn't wear a disguise. Movie nights where I let her see the vulnerable sides of me, the ones I'd always kept hidden beneath a polished CEO exterior. We had deep talks, sometimes awkward ones. We argued too, about trust, about expectations, about who we were and who we wanted to be. But underneath it all, we were growing something honest. One night, sitting on the rooftop of her apartment building, she turned to me and asked, "Do you regret lying to me?" I thought about it, then shook my head. I regret hurting you, but if I hadn't hidden who I was, I never would have seen who you really are, not the way I needed to. She was quiet for a long time. Then she reached for my hand. "I forgive you." And that was the beginning of everything. A few months passed. Lily got a job offer at a non-profit that helped homeless women rebuild their lives. She lit up when she talked about it. Her heart was massive, bigger than the universe. And I knew then more than ever that I wanted to spend forever trying to be worthy of it. One day I brought her to the foundation headquarters. We walked through the art room. Paintings lined the walls, created by kids from rough neighborhoods who had never touched a canvas before. At the end of the hall was a plaque. She stopped when she saw it. The Lily Foundation. Inspired by compassion, driven by hope. She turned to me, eyes full. "You named it after me?" I nodded. "You changed my life," I said simply. I wanted to do something that might change someone else's. She kissed me then, soft, slow, full of unspoken words, and I knew it was time. A week later, I brought her to a rooftop garden in the city. Candlelight, a small table, music playing faintly in the background. Nothing too grand, nothing overwhelming, just us. "I used to think I needed to hide to find love," I told her. "But you taught me that the right person doesn't love the image, they love the soul." I got down on one knee. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Lily, I lied to you once because I didn't think I was enough, but now I know the truth. You're the one who made me enough." I pulled out the ring. "Marry me?" She stared at me for a long, breathless second. Then she nodded, tears spilling over her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." We didn't have a fancy wedding. We didn't need one. Just close friends, simple vows, and a promise that this time there would be no lies. Just love, real, raw, imperfect, but beautiful. Years later, when people asked how I, Ethan Cole, multi-billionaire, mogul, CEO, found the love of his life, I told them the truth. She thought I was broke, and she loved me anyway. Because that was all it really came down to. Not status, not wealth, not reputation. Just a woman who saw through everything and still chose to stay.